We're at the halfway point in the NFL and your Survivor pools. If you want the best analysis in the business, stay tuned. It's Scratching and Surviving next. All right, guys, Statsational here with you for the Sharp app. Former FX trader on Wall Street, turned professional sports bettor and professional DFS player, and bringing you each and every week the best analysis on Survivor pools there is in the market. All right, let's take a look at week 9. Week 8, again, kind of calm the last few weeks now. Week 7, week 6, 7, and 8, fairly calm. If you look over at Circa, I think they lost just about 23 people of the 200 and a little over 200 that were left. We're just under 200 there now. So not a whole lot of chaos. About 10% of people knocked out of that pool. Probably similar in your pool. I think I mentioned last week that I thought Denver would wind up being the highest owned in Circa, and they were. And then I didn't really anticipate that the line was going to move as much as it did. So really you have to look as the week goes on how these lines are going to move. That line in the Denver game moved to a point where they became the outright favorite in the Circa pool. Most people took them when they were 2 or 3 points under where Detroit was as far as the point spread. I still thought Denver might be the most taken team because they lacked a lot of future value. I thought a lot of people would veer towards them. That does tend to be a sharper pool as well. So it may have been different in your leagues and your pools. But that's why you really want to monitor where the point spread is going right up to the point where you have to lock in your picks to get the most accurate picture of what's going on. So you could use this video, of course, as a guide, but things change, injuries happen, players come back off of injury, and it changes our perspective as far as who the pick is going to be or the best picks for that week. All right. Let's dive into Survivor Grid, take a look at what we've got going on there. Baltimore is the best team of the week as far as win percentage goes, with Kansas City just behind them. Again, you're going to want to monitor this because this can easily change as the week goes on. Baltimore hosting Denver. Denver, a team that everyone took last week, now a team that is the biggest underdog of the week. Baltimore's coming off of a bit of a surprising loss to Cleveland. We saw Winston. I mentioned it in the video. We just don't know what Winston's going to be able to bring to that team. Look, we know how good he is at throwing the ball. The question is always, will he throw it to the other team? They had an opportunity there. Baltimore dropped an interception late that would have won the game and missed it. So a bad loss there for Baltimore. They get a Denver team that's playing really well. A lot of people are going to shy away from this game because of that. Because Denver has played well, they've looked pretty good. Baltimore shaky off the loss last week, and a lot of people have taken Baltimore already. So that's why we're seeing just 12% of Baltimore being taken across the board here in most pools. You look at Baltimore, we're going to have other opportunities. They're home next week against Cincinnati. Not a game that everyone's going to be just jumping to play, but certainly a very winnable game for them. At Pittsburgh, not the best option here. At the Chargers, we don't really love that. There's going to be better options. You've got home for Philly. Again, I don't think anyone's getting too excited there. At the Giants, there's a game where it kind of looks like they will be a big favorite in that game and should win. Home against Pittsburgh, certainly better than on the road at Pittsburgh, and then at Houston, and then home for Cleveland in Week 18, which is a much better spot than maybe they were in last week on the road in Cleveland. So depending on the type of pool that you're in, maybe in the near term here, when we're looking at Baltimore, if you're in a heads-up situation, I have no problem taking Baltimore. As a matter of fact, I really just want to take whichever one of these teams winds up being the biggest favorite going into the week. And if you're in a pool with maybe just a few more people, we'll get into it when we look at the spreadsheet, but Baltimore still a pretty solid option when I think a lot of people are going to be moving down towards Philly and Cincinnati. Again, they play these pools incorrectly. A lot of people are going to be looking at future value far too much when you're in a pool with, let's say, 10 people left. There's the chances of us getting to week 15, 16 are really slim, so we don't want to look too far out into the future. But what I do like to look at, certainly in small pools, is what's my next 2 or 3 weeks. So let me just look at Kansas City first, and you'll see where I'm going with this. Kansas City, they are hosting Tampa, and that's the Monday night game. So firstly, the Monday night game, we always like to look at that, especially when we're down to very few people in the pool, because that is a hedging opportunity. So Kansas City will give you a good hedge opportunity, especially the fact that you now will know what all the other games did that weekend. So if other people in your pool are on Philadelphia, are on Cincinnati, or possibly Baltimore, and one of those teams should lose, that's going to give you added information to help you with your hedge bet. You may get down from, let's say, 7 down to 3 people left in your pool, giving you the ability to hedge at a better number. So there is some hedge value to Kansas City. But when we look at Kansas City, they've got a pretty good matchup against that same Denver team that Baltimore is playing in Week 10 at home. They're going to be probably just as big a favorite as they are this week. So what you're seeing is most people not taking Kansas City, and if you're in the Circa Pool, people aren't taking Kansas City because this Week 13 matchup with Las Vegas is, according to the rules of Circa, that's a big game for Kansas City because Week 13 is Thanksgiving. You are forced to take one of the Thanksgiving or Black Friday games as well as one of the Christmas Day games. So there are less options on those days, of course, so a lot of people are saving the best team that looks to be the best team for that week, which is going to be Kansas City. So a lot of people in Circa are not going to be taking Kansas City, which, of course, always leaves an option, certainly, to take Kansas City as a high leverage play. But I think maybe we've got some better options, and certainly in Week 12 against Carolina, where they're almost a lock, they're going to be a massive favorite in that game. You'll have more information going into Thanksgiving as far as how many people are left. And that may be a spot where if you are in the Circa Pool where perhaps taking a very calculated risk would be worth it in Week 12. So I think in Circa, I kind of lay off of Kansas City here for the first couple of weeks. For those of you in normal type of pools, you can look at Kansas City. And if you're in a small pool and you're thinking about wanting Kansas City as that hedge option, the one thing that I don't like here, and I think it kind of outweighs the hedge value, depending on how many people are left in your pool, is the fact that I'm certainly going to be off the where everyone else is going, which is good. I get a team that has a high likelihood of winning that most people are not going to take. But then next week, a lot of people will be on Kansas City as probably one of the biggest favorites in the week, and I'm going to be forced to take a subpar team. So there's a good chance I will be on a subpar team both this week and next week. So I don't know if that necessarily is something I want to do, even in a heads-up situation, right? Or even more so in a heads-up situation. Heads up, I'm looking to take the most optimal path, letting my opponents kind of try to figure it out and get a little cute by taking suboptimal picks. I really want to be optimal, and optimal right here, as of right now, again, this may change. Kansas City winds up going off as a 10-point favorite. Baltimore comes down to an 8-point favorite. Then this changes for me. But as it stands right now, the optimal line here is to take Baltimore this week and then Kansas City next week in small pools, especially in pools where you are heads up. Those you're going to just want to take the biggest favorite each week, hope they win, and hope your opponents then go down and take a chance on a week like this week and take a Philadelphia, take a Cincinnati, where they're slightly less of a chance to win their game, and perhaps they get upset and you win, right? I always want to just give myself, even if it's a 2, 3, 4% advantage over my opponent, heads up. That's all you can ask for. If you do that week in, week out, you have the edge. You've got the EV, the positive EV in that situation, and that's what we're looking for. We're not trying to predict the games, okay? So Philly coming in at 75%. They're 7.5-point favorites over Jacksonville. They're garnering a lot of action here, almost 34%, as is Cincinnati, about 35% right now. And the reason for both of these teams is getting so much is a lot of people have them available to them, and they don't have a ton of future value, neither one of these teams. Now, Philly maybe a little bit more, especially when you look at Week 14. They have Carolina. If you are in a medium-sized pool, I really wouldn't even be thinking about Philadelphia. You could consider Cincinnati, but I think we'll get to it. But New Orleans offers some value here as well in medium to especially larger-sized pools. They're getting 5.6% of the action. Buffalo, Minnesota, really don't care for the Buffalo pick here. Minnesota, Washington, Tennessee, we're going to talk about in a second because of where they're hitting on the spreadsheet. So I mentioned the spreadsheet. Let's dive into the spreadsheet right now and take a look at what I am talking about. So on the spreadsheet, I've got it weighted at 100%, kind of getting ahead of myself here. We should just go to 0% first. And let's talk about that. So at 0%, as always, we're going to get the top two favorites. We talked about it, Baltimore, Kansas City, the strategy involved here. Do you want to take Kansas City and give yourself that hedge opportunity. You really want to zero in on where the line's going to be. These teams are almost equal when you look at the Sharp app, and I put the lines in here. It converts it for me. I put in what the midpoint is. I go to the Sharp app. Guys, if you don't have the Sharp app yet, download it. And if you want to get a free version of the paid version, pro version of the Sharp app, use code SURVIVE35. SURVIVE35 gets you 35% off the Sharp app. Just go download it at sharp.app. I was going to give you the website for the beta version, which you can take a look at as well. It's the.sharp.app. And you can check that out as well. We've got like over 50 sports books streaming live with not only the spreads and totals, but props as well. A lot of other tools in there. And you could always hit us up in the Discord. When you download the Sharp app, then you can link over into our Discord, sync up there, and ask questions in our Discord. But for now, let's look at Baltimore, Kansas City. As I mentioned, some value here on Kansas City as far as a hedge. I don't particularly like it unless this line moves up, right? Unless Kansas City becomes a bigger favorite or the Baltimore line comes down. I'm kind of leaning here, especially heads up, just taking the biggest favorite, which right now is Baltimore. But these teams are very close. So as I said, this could flip. When we move it to 25%, and this is going to be like medium size, small pools to mid-size pools where we don't really think the pool is going to go all the way to week 18, but it's probably not going to end in the next couple of weeks either. You see that Kansas City remains one of the top choices, but Cincinnati then emerges here because of the future value or lack thereof on Cincinnati. So in those medium-sized pools, you may want to look at a team like Cincinnati. I like them better than Philly because I think we do have a similar chance to win here. Again, let's follow and monitor the lines. And I've got a team in Cincinnati where I'm probably going to be less likely to take them in the future. So I would lean more to the Cincinnati side if my decision was between these two teams. When you move it to 100%, it's where it becomes really interesting here, where you've got New Orleans and Tennessee as two options. Now, New Orleans, let's start there. Really interesting here because only being taken by 5.6% of pools. They're at Carolina, road game. I know people tend to not like these road games, but if you're a 75% chance to win in the betting markets, on the road, at home, doesn't matter, right? So we got a slightly less chance to win. Again, we'll see how that line moves by the time we get towards the lock, but 75% chance to win at a much lower pick percentage than we're getting on either Cincinnati or Philly. So I love this from a leverage standpoint. If I was in a medium-sized pool and I wanted to get away from some of these favorites, I think New Orleans is the team I would take. Now, some people could even look towards a Tennessee, which is what's popping up in the spreadsheet. Now, the reason it's popping up, if you look at Tennessee, and if I bring back up Survivor Grid, there's really no value. Look at these games that are coming up for Tennessee. They have no future value. They're probably going to be an underdog in each and every one of these games. So when we look at them from the future value standpoint, obviously they have that highest number, which indicates the lowest amount of future value, and that's why they're popping here. But I think when you're looking between the two teams, yes, you've got a lot of value or a lot of leverage over the field by taking Tennessee, where no one's really going to take them. I think you get that same benefit by taking New Orleans. Now, again, this is for larger pools. You've got 1,000 people left in your pool. You're going to need some chaos in order to hit this pool and win, which means you're going to need Philly and Cincinnati to lose, or at least one of them to knock out, over a third of your pool, and God forbid both lose and you knock out 70 to 75% of the pool. Now we're talking, right? So I really want to get away from these teams in really large pools. Mid-sized pools, okay, fine, maybe we'll take a Cincinnati. And certainly in small pools, I'm getting off of these guys as well, and I'm looking towards one of these favorites, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at for this week. As always, you guys are the best. Leave your comments down below. I will get to them as soon as I can with your questions for pools, for Survivor pools, and any other questions you may have. If you got questions about the Sharp app, leave that down below as well. I'd love to answer them for you guys. So I am Statsational. Of course, this is the Sharp app. This is Scratching and Surviving, and we will hopefully see you again next week with a chance to hit your pool and make all that big money. Good luck.